Hello there, everyone. How you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going into r/ Let's Not Meet, where some stalker peoples stalk people. Oh no. Let's not meet those stalkers, though, and therein lies the title. Anyways, if you watch, there's a little announcement I have for all of you at the end. Be sure to watch to it. And remember to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Now, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Stalker followed me home from the gym, and I am terrified. I normally take a walk every Friday to attend my weekly Pilates class. It's a 15-minute power walk from my apartment in a relatively safe city from Eastern Europe. I have never ever felt unsafe in my city, and I wouldn't normally exercise caution when walking alone at night. Tonight, however, after the end of class, I began my usual walk home, and 5 minutes in, and a lot of corner cutting and alley shortcuts, I noticed this strange looking man is still following me. The first glimpse I got of him at this point was a young man in his 20s. Kinda looks like an incel. Has a hat on, shiny, elegant shoes on, and a black coat. On a closer look, he had a link chain, the kind of chain used in heavy transportation, and to pull heavy loads around his neck. I instantly got shivers around my spine, and changed my pace of walking very slowly to then very fast to check if he does too. He changed his as well, and I could see from the corner of my eye he was still behind me. He was also on the phone, and I got the feeling he was taking pictures of me. At this point, I completely freaked out, but my first thought was that I was athletic enough to put up with this creep, that I need to stay focused. I was on the main boulevard parallel from my apartment, and I decided to turn right in a very fast and abrupt way. He kept on walking, and I thought I was just crazy, and it was all in my head, but 2 minutes later he was still behind me. I must mention that there were people on the street at every corner, so even if he wanted to attempt something, it would have been virtually impossible. When I reached my apartment, I entered the house very fast, checked if he wasn't behind me, and that was it. However, the scary part comes now. After an hour or so, my husband checked our building security cameras and saw that as I rushed into the flat, this creep hid behind a car and stayed there for a few good minutes watching the buildings. Afterwards, he approached the entrance and took a picture of the entrance and the address engraved on it. I am now scared he will start stalking me and my family. Oh, that's really not good for you. I mean, kind of a dumb moment, but good luck? That's all I can really say. Be sure to have the police on speed dial. The neighbors that stalk me. So, for context, I moved into my new house about a year or two ago. I had lived in the area for a year before, but we were evicted due to the owners of our old house wanting to move in. I'm a young female still living with my family, which makes this story even more weird and a word I don't think I can say on YouTube. When you look out my window, you see my fence and then a house. They are up on a small hill, so the fence does not block anything. The first encounter I had with this man was late at night. I was with some friends while all of our parents were out at a party. I will say that me and my friends were old enough to be left at home. We were responsible. We were just relaxing in my room with no light or music on. We had turned the TV off when we were alone. We heard my dog start barking for a good 10 minutes. We passed this off because she barks at absolutely everything. I'm talking birds on the power line, bug on the front porch, anything that moves pretty much. We start hearing weirder noises like crunching circling the perimeter of my room and scratching on the walls. I kid you not, the moment we start getting scared, the loudest bangs I have ever heard starts pounding on my glass sliding door. Me and three others run out of my room to go look at what in the world could be making that much noise. We were greeted by an aggressive dog. This dog was up on the glass, pounding on the door. My dog was scared. She usually doesn't do this, but she backed away behind me into my room with all her fur up. And then we see it, a man, dressed in all black, standing at the door. We were all standing perfectly still, but I guess my friend's flight response went off, and just as he jumped to lock the door, the man reached for it too. My friends yelled, "What are you doing here? Who are you?" And he responded with a simple, "I don't know," and walked off with his dog, who was on a leash. When our parents got back, we told them about him, and they asked us why we didn't call them. Truthfully, I know we should have, but I didn't want to ruin my mom's birthday party. I have learned from this. 2 days later, my mom confronted our neighbor who was mowing the lawn. He said that it was in fact him, and that his dog had run into our gate, and that he got the dog back. He said he meant to come and talk to her earlier, but didn't. I thought it was a normal story until I thought back to that night. The gate that his dog supposedly ran through had a tough clasp that was shut on that night. We have it there so our dog can't get out and so nothing can come in. But you can open it by hand, meaning that this man opened the gate and let himself and his dog in. My theory is that he heard the music stop and didn't see lights from his house. So he decided that he was going to come and, I don't know, rob us? The noises we heard must have been him, scaling the perimeter of my room for 10 minutes before attempting to enter. We filed a police report and nothing happened for a few months, until one night I was in bed, almost asleep but still getting comfy. I sat up to rearrange my pillows and turned around so I could properly make it comfy, when I saw a face outside my window staring back at me, and whoever it was wearing a black face covering, and I texted my mom and just froze. I heard moving, and then my mom came out and checked. There was nothing there. This wasn't just my imagination, as the neighbor's lights are visible from the crack in my curtain, but the face was covering a majority of the light. Ever since then, I have noticed them watching, and whenever I catch them looking, they get up from their balcony and leave. I'll catch them in the same spot, watching only 5 minutes later. So, dearest neighbor, who watches me relentlessly, let's not meet ever again. The guy who wanted my boss at 2 a.m. I am a 30-year-old transgender male. For the sake of my demeanor when this event occurred, I was a timid 19-year-old lesbian unleashed into the world immediately after graduation. I had just lost my job at McDonald's due to a massive flood taking out a lot of businesses in my area, and I had a girlfriend that lived 30 minutes away, and I needed gas money, so I took a job offered to me by a family friend at a 24/7 gas station in the next town over from mine. The shift I was hired for was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and I had never worked a night shift in my life. But I thought it would be pretty cool to have little to no pressure other than to make sure the coffee was ready at 4 a.m. for the morning regulars. I was required to train on day shift for the first couple of weeks to get accustomed to the operations. Throughout those weeks, I learned many of the ins and outs of what takes place on the night shift. And I also learned the ins and outs of people that hung around the place for hours. And there were quite a few. One woman in particular, Melinda, would come in every morning after dropping her kids at school, and around lunchtime, sometimes actually buying us lunch, and in the evenings when her husband was home, she came for hours, considering she lived a couple streets over. She was nice, and I started to enjoy her visits, and we all got along so well in the store. It was a fun atmosphere for the most part, so it's finally time for me to work the night shift, and I had my manager with me for a few nights. I was taking her place on night shift because she couldn't do it anymore. She was nice, and I admit I had a pretty big crush on her, so I didn't mind spending the time with her all night. I learned what she worked night shift. Melinda spent the entire night there. I had been working night shift alone for a couple weeks, and some of those night shifts drug into the days where we were short-staffed. But again, I needed the money. Anyway, one night I was doing my chores, scrubbing the hot dog rollers, setting coffee filters up for the rush, and mopping the entire store. While emptying my mop bucket, I heard the chime of the door, and looked at my watch and saw it was 2 a.m., which was odd. There typically wasn't anyone coming into the store until 4 consistently, and I was a little upset because I had just mopped that floor. But I went out to see who it was. Just as I headed out, the movement in the mirror overheard to "Stop shoplifters" caught my eye. There was a man at the counter doing something with the money order machine, and upon looking again he had a knife. He was cutting the wires. For what reason, I have no clue. While he was cutting, I heard him muttering, "Where's Bonka?" over and over again. I knew I could walk back and get to the phone in the office, but I didn't want him to hear me, so I pulled my phone out and texted Melinda to call the cops, and tried to text her quietly for as much of what I could describe. She told me she would be right down, and I was freaking out with every second that I could describe. She told me she would be right down. Before she could get there, the man went outside to the gas pumps and threw all of the trash cans and started to try and cut through the gas lines. I took this opportunity to lock the front door in case he tried to come back in. And thank God I did, because he immediately made a beeline to the door and slammed his fists into it. Just as he did, the cops and Melinda showed up, and he was put into the cop car while I explained everything that had just happened. Turns out Bonka was the name he called my manager, whose name was Bianca. He had become obsessed with her in the weeks prior, dropping in nightly and making her very uncomfortable, which explains why she couldn't take it anymore. They knowingly threw a timid 19-year-old into this mess, and seeing me there instead of her was what turned his obsession into rage. So to this man that became extremely unhinged when they took a woman out of a potentially dangerous situation, and the woman that threw a naive teenager into his world. Let's never meet again. That's the end of today's video. Now for the info I was talking about at the beginning. If you enjoy my videos, I have a Ko-Fi in the description below. If you enjoy, please consider throwing some money my way through there. I don't make any money from my videos yet, and the bills are becoming increasingly difficult to pay. Now, the housing bills are fine, but the issue might be food going forward, so I just wanna, if you can, send a bit of money my way if you enjoyed. Sorry for being like this. I'll see you next time.